Hello and welcome to another episode of BoxTrick. I am your host, Matt Brady, otherwise known on the internet as Super Games Bros. Joined today, once again, by Kyle, otherwise known as Age of Retro. How are we doing today, man?
Good. Thank you for having me. Glad to
Yeah,
be back.
this is great, man. Tried to plan another episode. We did one a couple months ago, and we both just have kind of stuff coming up here and there. We're finally here. I was almost thought I was going to have to cancel because if you can tell by my voice, I'm just getting over being sick. But powering through, I'm gonna do this here, man. And then all the crazy stuff that's happened since the last time
Oh yeah.
we recorded. I mean, TikTok.
Oh,
We're both, we kind of met on TikTok. Now it was gone. Now it's back. It feels weird. I mean, what do you think about that? Does it? It doesn't feel the same.
it doesn't feel the same. It's different. And I was kind of hoping for a break a little bit,
Yeah,
because I feel like TikTok has as much as I love it, the gaming community is strong and it's fantastic. It has taken away some of my time to play games.
yeah.
And I was kind of looking forward to that break, and then it's back and it's like
Does it? Because I've heard some people say, well, one, I don't think everyone has access to it. Like, I think if it's not on the
yep,
app stores.
it's
So if you
not.
deleted it, yeah, it's gone. CapCut, which is also TikTok owns, that's their editing software. That hurt me more actually than losing TikTok.
Yeah.
And so it's just weird. But yeah, it doesn't feel the same.
It is different. Did you
It's
did you jump into any other
I did
apps?
I did download Red Note, which
You did?
I'm not gonna lie, Red Note's kind of cool.
It's not bad.
It's pretty cool. I mean, in fact, actually, I don't want to see any American content on there. Like, I'm having way more
Yeah, we're gonna
fun.
ruin it.
I know I'm
Yeah, we're
having
gonna
way
ruin it.
more fun seeing all the Chinese content, like the food and like the cool cars they have over there and all this
It
stuff.
is interesting.
It is kind of it feels real sketchy when you like sign up for it because one, it's not in English to tell you how to do it.
Right.
And they want to talk about like, oh, TikTok's Chinese controlled and stuff. I mean, Red Note's like real like handing your information over, but they've probably got it at this point. That's how
Yeah. I was
how
lured also into Lemon 8. I don't know if you
yeah,
jumped
I haven't
into
tried
that.
that one yet.
And I
No.
was like, all right, once TikTok goes down, I'll just jump into this. And it's an affiliate of TikTok. Also, it also went down
Yeah.
when TikTok did. I'm like, what was the point of that? I thought we were
Yeah.
jumping, but whatever.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, the only other one I've jumped to is I've done Blue Sky, which I actually really like because Blue Sky is kind of cool in that it's very much like Twitter used to be. Kind of like before Elon bought it, and it's like a totally different thing now. Um, but it's all like built on the same protocol, so they're going to do like their own version of Instagram and their own version of uh like TikTok essentially, and it all is going to be tied back to that one profile. So like it's kind of cool, and like they've already added video and stuff like that. So like I'm kind of enjoying Blue Sky so far because it's like Twitter without the ads, which is great.
It is great.
Like it's great. Yeah. So, but yeah, TikTok, man, just feels different. Feels to me like I was really planning on going hardcore live streaming over there this year, but now I'm like, I don't know, because it could still get banned again.
Right.
And it's like maybe I should just focus on like YouTube and Twitch instead.
I agree. I can't get down on Twitch for some reason, and I thought that I'd invest more time into YouTube, and I have, just not as much as I'd like to. Instagram, I've
You
noticed
do a lot of
myself.
photos.
I do. I've pushed myself back into Instagram, and I've grown a little bit over the past month, which has been great. So it's connected. It's reconnected me back in Instagram. So that's
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I like as just an interface. I do like Instagram. It's so weird because sometimes I'll post something on one of the platforms and it'll explode. And then I post it on the other platforms and it'll die. But
Yep.
it's always like random as to which one it is that's going to be the one that's going to take off. Let's dive in here today. We are going to be doing something we've done here on the podcast before, which I like to call like Super Nintendo classics, or whatever system it is, or developer, or any of those things, where we each just kind of have three games we're going to be talking about. And today we're talking Super Nintendo because Kyle, I know you're a Super Nintendo guy.
That's me. It's probably my favorite system maybe for some genres of of games, it's probably my favorite generation of RPGs. But yeah, we can get into that.
So I'm going to start and
Okay.
just kind of show you how we kind of do this here. So essentially, the first game I want to talk about is Metal Marines, which I think is a total hidden gem on the Super Nintendo. And even when you go and you watch, like everyone wants to make hidden gems videos on YouTube ever since Metal Jesus started it way back in the day, because
Mhm.
that's how you get clicks and views. And I feel like nobody ever talks about this game. And essentially, what it is a very cool, you could call it a real-time strategy game. It's kind of like Battleship, actually, is the way I kind of view it more so. And it also came out on the PC. It's made by Namco, but essentially it's a futuristic version of Battleship, right? Where each side has a base that you have like a map that you have to defend and you have to build, and you get like missiles, you get nuclear weapons, and you also get these things called metal marines, which are, just mechs that you can drop and they can attack like a specific area. And you can begin just like when you're playing the game Battleship, like, all right, B-52, right? All right, or is B-52 out? You look it up, and that's where you could say fire a missile, and then you'll see what's over on that side. The difference is that each side can also build up defenses. You can build up anti-air missiles. You can build up like scramblers, to scramble their radar. You can also build up like turrets, which will attack the metal marines if you drop them, and your metal marines themselves can also defend specific areas. It is such a fun game to dive into. Like if you're looking for something kind of different, and it's still a ton of fun to play today. I was playing it over the holidays on my Mac, and I'm using the OpenEMU emulator, the Mac version of
Yep.
emulation. And you can speed it up with like the tab button, and so to make it go so much faster. And it's still just such a fun game, and it's one of my go-to games whenever I'm like, I want to play something on Super Nintendo. It's always one of the first games that I go to.
I'm unfamiliar with it. I
Really?
Yeah, I've never played it. Is it I'm trying to picture it. Is it like an RTS, like Sims kind of game?
um it is let me see how to describe this to you, man. It
Yeah,
is So it really is like Battleship, I think, is the easiest way to describe the way it plays, because you each take turns, but it's kind of active. It's active, but you're on like a timer, right? So you have like fuel and like resources, and you can
mhm,
attack as soon as your fuel reaches like a certain level. So, I mean, basically, you have a little base, and it's like it's a grid format, and you can say like, all right, I'm going to start building like missiles here, or I'm going to build anti-air missiles here, or I'm going to build a metal marine here. But you have a resource pool. It's like oil or whatever, or fuel, and like money, and it's like drilling. So kind of similar to what you'd see in like, you ever play Red Alert Command and
yeah,
Conquer?
yep.
Okay, kind of like that.
Like
You have
RTS. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a blend, but it's more in like, I guess, the board game form, like that
interesting.
battleship. Yeah, so it's just really then when you say, "Okay, I think I'm gonna attack now," they show you the enemy's map in this like grid, and you don't know it's there unless you've like fired missiles over there, and then you can kind of see some of the surrounding areas. And so then you just start like, all right, I'm going to start firing missiles here and here and here. And it's usually best to kind of start at the beginning of their map, because if you fire too deep in, then it's not going to hit anything. And so each side has three bases. And well, I should rephrase that. You have three bases that they have to take out. And you kind of can like hide them, or you want to put them in like different locations. It's like they're searching for those bases essentially to like sink your battleship.
Right.
And they have one which you have to try and take out. And yeah, so you're just looking for that base. Then it takes like three missiles, or you have to like drop some metal marines over there. It's pretty cool, and you can only fire like, I think, five missiles max, but each one of your items can also be upgraded. So that's where you're kind of sitting there using your strategies, thinking, all right, do I want to fill up more of my map with like defense? Do I want to fill it up with
Right.
like more missiles? Should I be upgrading? It's pretty sweet.
So you said it's on Super Nintendo and it's on PC as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Now,
I believe they're kinda different. I think the
okay,
Super Nintendo version's better.
okay. So I'm wondering, I have a hard time playing like Warcraft 2 on Sega Saturn or something like a StarCraft on 64. I have a hard time playing those games because I think they're a bit clunky with the controller.
Mhm.
I'd much rather have a mouse. Do you feel any of that awkwardness when you're playing on a controller and on the Super Nintendo versus the PC?
No.
No?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I don't know if it has SNES mouse support. You kinda don't
That would
really
have been a
n
great use
it would
of the
be. Or,
mouse.
hey, hey, maybe we get a remake of it with the Switch
Yeah.
2. Switch
Yep.
2 is gonna have mouse mode. Yeah, I don't believe it does. It came out in 1993, and, yeah, so I'm not entirely sure if it has mouse support or
So
not.
many missed opportunities for the
Uh-huh.
Mario Paint mouse. So many missed opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm gonna look here because I just wanna be 100% sure. Yeah, it is not it's not on the Switch thing yet, the Switch SNES thing. Maybe it'll come to it at some point, but yeah, I mean, I play with the controller just fine. It's pretty easy because you pretty much you're almost always in a menu.
Right.
It's not like there's really not a lot to do outside of being inside of menus.
Cool. So is it like location based, like you work on a map? Once you beat a certain enemy, do you
Then
move
you go
on
to a
to
different maps. Yeah,
okay.
it's like a level, and I think there's like 8 levels, and it's kinda funny. You're like this fictional, you know, you control the United Earth Empire, which is like a version, like, a futuristic version of the United Nations, and the enemies are the Zorgwith or whatever, and it's pretty funny. Like, and it's like and then there's like the space colonies, allied forces, which is like and stuff like that. So it's kind of and like it kind of reminds me of Gundam a little bit, really, in like
Interesting.
in like the characters, but the characters are all sort of like over the top and stuff like that. So each level you're playing a different like general of the other army.
I am super curious now. I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I mean, I don't know. Let's see here. Metal Marines cart only
I was actually wondering this.
eBay. Yeah, well, we'll look
How
it
much
up.
is this game?
eBay. Oh, let's see here. Metal. Let's see. Metal Marines cart only. There's not a lot of people selling it in the first place, so the prices are all over the place.
Hidden gem.
But the first one that comes up by a pretty reputable seller is $80.
And that's loose.
That's yeah, cart only. There's another
Interesting.
person selling one for $20, but I would have to imagine that's probably a reproduction cart. Complete in
Interesting.
box, 230.
One of the things I noticed recently too, I go through these waves on what I collect, and I've jumped back into Super Nintendo over the past month, just trying to get some RPGs that might have fallen to the side, like Secret of the Secret of
Evermore.
Evermore, right? That one kind of slipped through whatever. I just never experienced it when I was younger. I picked it up, but when I was looking at price charting, I was just looking at more of the expensive end of Super Nintendo games, and there's quite a gap. It's like $3,000,
Insane.
$1,000, and then there's like a $300 threshold now. And there's obviously like cheaper ones. So I'm trying to pick away in that lower 300, but I can't put my head around that there's like a range of $1,000 game for Super Nintendo now.
It's insane.
It's nuts. It's
It's
nuts. So
insane.
like you just told me about this random game I've never really heard of, and now it's like it's probably $80. Like what? What is this?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Yeah, I know the prices like that are insane. Just retro collecting in general. God, it's so. And now because I pre-ordered we talked about this last time, the analog N64, and
Yep.
so now I'm like, all right, well now I want to rebuild or build, I should say, a physical N64 collection. And I also just ordered the FPGA PlayStation that's
Yep.
coming out.
Yep.
And so now I'm like, all right, well, now I need to build. I do actually have a pretty decent PlayStation 1 collection, so I'm not super concerned. Like I have like Xenogears and Final Fantasy 7 and Legend of Dragoon and most Metal Gear Solid, like most of the games I already like really want. But yeah, I don't know. Now that there's like new ways to play it, and it's like FPGA to me is really cool just because it's like the same chip. And so it's still kind of different than emulation. And that it's like you might be able to see better performance, which especially like N64 to me is really appealing.
Mhm.
But a lot of Super Nintendo games don't really need that because they all like emulators do it just fine. For like if there, and there's really not a lot of games where it's like the performance is bad on Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and you sent me that the other day. Uh, I'm sorry, what is it called? It's,
It is the Super Station.
and it plays what exactly? It
It
plays
is going
PS1, PS2?
just PS1,
Okay,
although I would imagine people are saying because so yeah, like the system itself you can get by itself and it doesn't have a disk drive. The disk drive is separate, but you could like put in ROMs onto it and it's
gotcha.
FPGA, which is like, it's like you have the analog handheld,
Yep,
right? Yeah.
the Pocket.
The Pocket, right, but for anybody listening, the difference between it and emulation is that this is hardware emulation. It's like a chip pretending to be the same chip that was in the system itself, as opposed to an emulator on a computer, which is software emulation, like trying to and most of what I've seen from any of the analog devices is that the emulation is usually better that way than it is on like PC or
Right.
Android or whatever. And the reason I'm most excited about the N64 one is because the N64, a lot of like emulation is not particularly great. And
It's
a lot
not.
of games might have better performance, which is really cool. So that's why I'm interested in this PlayStation 1 as well, because there's definitely a lot of PlayStation 1 games that could benefit from being able to run at 60 FPS or being able to run at really like native 4K. So that's kind of cool to me.
That's appealing. That is appealing.
Yeah, so that is kind of cool to me. But some people are saying that you will also be able to probably because it's a CD drive that this docking station comes with, and so it was like 150 for the device and then like 40 for the docking station. But you can only like put down a deposit for it
Mhm.
right now. But they said it should probably also be able to play Saturn and like Sega CD, any of these CD based disc drive
Interesting.
games. Yeah.
That'd be
Which,
huge for Saturn.
oh yeah, that'd be insane.
Huge. Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be huge.
that'd be insane for Saturn because that's another system. That's like the one system I've never owned, but I've always wanted to is the Saturn.
I just recorded, some footage today on the Saturn, mostly my Japanese collection, and I was, the video spoiler for my future video, but, basically it's about, those imports that came from Japan, like, if they had come over to the US and if they were ported to the Saturn, I think it could have saved the Saturn.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I mean, obviously if the Saturn had just had a 3D Sonic game to start,
Yep.
totally different. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
totally different conversation
Yep.
for it. But yeah, it's weird because there are some games that are better on like a lot of fighters, like especially those Capcom fighters are better on Saturn than on
Yep.
PlayStation.
And they didn't release so many, and they're
I know.
they're they're like American IPs. Like, how do you not
I
release
know.
Marvel superheroes in
I know.
America? Doesn't make any sense to me.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense. All right. All right. Well, hey, I'm going to toss it to you,
Okay,
and then we'll just go back and forth here.
sure. Visual reference for the podcast. I have Super Punch Out. Uh, I've always loved this game. I feel like it's one of those annual games that I could just pick up and play. I love the original, and I think that this game really just kind of nailed the evolution and really showed off what the Super Nintendo can do. It's a beautiful, colorful game, and it not only takes the, I guess, nostalgia or love that people have for the original, it expands on it, and I think it's just a game that, it's not something that comes up in a lot of conversations when people talk about the Super Nintendo. So I just wanted to kind of bring it up again. And I do love it. I always find myself just jumping in. If I ever need to test something like an emulator on a handheld, I'm jumping into that. I want to see how it feels. That's like my baseline, you know?
Yeah. Now, and you prefer it to the original
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I do love the original Mike Tyson version.
for
Um,
sure.
I I I I probably have more fun playing the Super Nintendo version.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm gonna say something here.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say the game's bad, but it for me, I don't know. I'm anytime I ever try to play Super Punch Out, I'm just always like, I'd rather just play the NES version
Really?
or the Wii version. Yeah.
Wii version's great.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not saying it's
that is
bad. I think it's just yeah, because I think sometimes it's like, it's just I don't know. It's just I just couldn't get into it.
I think
It's
the
just not
Wii
for me.
version is the next step. Like what the original Punch-Out game is to the Super Punch-Out game, the Wii version is to like they it's just the next evolution of that series, and I thought the Wii version was fantastic as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still so shocked they have not brought this game back or they've done nothing
It
with the
would
franchise.
they could easily just make an HD remake. I'd buy it, or
Yeah.
evolve the series on the
Yeah.
Switch. It'd be perfect.
Or like yeah, or even like mobile. I mean, I don't understand how they never this they look at now that Nintendo's sort of into mobile games, how is this not a franchise you would do something with?
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, what I mean, so what is it you like, more about this game? Because obviously there are some different characters, some different dynamics. Like that super meter at the bottom is different than the star
Yep.
meter.
I think mostly the character design is probably some of the most interesting character design. They're big and colorful characters. I think they nailed their personalities and their unique play styles. I thought they did a really good job, and I think it's a beautiful game to have. Um, that really just kind of shows what the Super Nintendo can do. It's just a pretty game.
Yeah, I'd agree. Visually, it's yeah, it's fantastic, and it is one of those games that does, like you said, really showcase the Super Nintendo sprite,
Yeah.
like this the sprite system and everything. Yeah, and 2 player as well, right?
No,
I think this one's not 2 player.
no, I don't think so.
You can't do 1v1 in this?
No,
Oh, I thought you
you
could.
you would have to be. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only one.
I thought you could do I thought this one had only the Wii version is you
Yeah.
could has
You
1v1.
because you would have to be one of the characters to
Oh, that
be a two-player game.
you can't just both be
No, I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's not. I'm pretty sure it's a single player.
oh, okay, alright. Well, hey, man, jeez. I don't know what I'm talking about apparently. But
You should play it.
I need to apparently. I need to dive back into it.
That's right.
But you're not Little Mac in this game.
No, you're some other guy. I forget his name.
Yeah. Does it say?
Uh, no.
And you don't have the in between montage of biking around like New York City?
A missed opportunity.
Missed already. It's okay. But no, I mean, I will agree. I think that it does carry on, the Super Nintendo said, "Hey, we're gonna take a lot of games and we're gonna slap super on it and we're gonna
Yep.
remake it." But I do feel like it is truly a super version
Definitely an
of
enhancement.
Punch Out. Yeah.
And now that you say it, like I it doesn't have that story element that the first one have.
Yeah.
Like the first one, like you felt like you were going through the life of a boxer through Little Mac. You don't get that in the second game.
Yeah.
It's just like a pure fighter.
Yeah. But control wise, I mean,
Amazing.
is it still as because I like I said, my time with this one is not nearly as much. It is still like the strategy you have to go into each it's like that's Punch Out is really not a boxing game, it's a puzzle game.
Right.
The franchise in general, but it is more of a it's just like the original. It's a puzzle game more than anything else.
Yeah, you're reacting to things. It's about reflexes and pattern identification, and I just think that the controls are fantastic, and I do appreciate them more so in this one than I do the original NES version.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. Well, hey,
You should give it another try.
I will give it another try.
Okay.
I promise you that. I gave Earthbound a try, by the
Yeah.
way. You recommended it. I didn't get super far into it actually. I started playing it and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Because I got past the intro and everything. And then I was like, I should play this on an emulator. That way I can like I can speed past dialogue. And I did that. And then I was like, now I should do this with some of the other RPGs I wanted to play. So I went back and I played Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which is one of my favorite
Great
RPGs
game.
ever. And upon finishing, I was like, yeah, this game isn't as good as I remember. And then I tried to play Breath of Fire for like the 50th time. And I think I've just decided Breath of Fire is not for me. I'm not
Right.
saying the franchise isn't. I'm saying the first game. I have tried on the Game Boy Advance. I have tried back in the old original day on the Super Nintendo. It's too slow. It's too confusing. I feel like you have to have a guide to even understand what it is you're supposed to do in that game. I'm willing to give the rest of the series a chance, but the original game, I think I'm done
No.
with.
Wow.
Yeah.
I how much time do you invest in an RPG before you give up?
Um, I mean, I'm pretty far through Breath of Fire. Like I'm probably like 3/4 of the way through, but I'm just like
And you're like, you
I'm at
can't.
the underwater stage, and I'm just like, it's just too much.
I think it's not for you then.
It's not for
That's
me.
pretty far to make it
I'm pretty
through.
far into I'm pretty far
Yeah.
into Breath of Fire. I'm just like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends. If it's the battle systems in RPGs are pretty important to me. It either needs to be like a true turn base that I can get into, or I don't know, like the Tales series. I'm really trying to get into it. I've tried Tales of Symphonia. Right now I'm playing Tales of Vesperia on
Mhm.
Switch, and I'm kind of enjoying it so far. So we'll see if I continue on with that. But games like Grandia, I think have a great battle system where
Love
you're
Grandia.
still or Grandia 2 especially where
Yep.
you're like moving around. Eternal Sonata had a similar battle system like that. Like Final Fantasy 10-2 actually was a little bit different because it involved like some motion. Games like Enchanted Arms, which are kind of it's like a PS3, Xbox 360 RPG, where it's not like a true turn-based. It's also like a hybrid between turn-based and tactical because
Mhm.
you're on like a grid that you can kind of move around, but you're stuck to this like tiny little grid. So like that's kind of cool. And then I love tactical RPGs like Front Mission, Fire Emblem.
Did you get the new Front Mission 2, I think it was?
No, haven't gotten
On the
either of them, but I plan on it. Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, they just, I think it was limited run. They just released a new pre-order for, I think it was Front Mission 2.
Hmm.
So, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I have the original on the DS version. I did not pick up the Switch version. I might at some point, but I don't know. I kind of get the DS version. If I want to play it, I'll play on that. So, okay. Next up for me, continuing on with my metal thing. I was actually thinking about trying to find 3 games that had metal in it. Um, but I was like, I've played Metal Warrior. It's kind of okay. The only one I'm going to talk about today is Metal Morph. Are you familiar with this game?
You got me again.
Wow,
No idea.
really?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, man. So the easiest way to describe Metal Morph is, which it's kind of just in that like it's just okay stage. Like it's not a great game by any means, but it is kind of like somebody. It came out in 1994, so it clearly came out after the 2 games that obviously inspired it, which I would say would be Star Fox and Metroid. It is like a blend between Star Fox and Metroid in that you the majority of the game is like run and gun. It's really like platformer. Your character can basically turn into metal liquid, and you can like so it allow you to like get to special parts of the stage where like, oh, here's a crack I have to go under, kind of like Samus's morph ball,
Mhm.
right? But they're like short stages. And then after each stage, you fly to a different planet, but it's like Star Fox.
Uh, this sounds like a made up game. This is a
It's not.
game that that
It's
came
not.
out, published by Nintendo or released
This
by
is not.
Nintendo.
This is by Origin Systems, and like who? What are they? What else have Origin made? They're one of those things that I think there was one of those companies not even in existence anymore. They made all the Ultima games, Wing
Yeah,
Commander.
like King's Quest, or is that Sierra?
That was Sierra. Yeah, they pretty much made them. They pretty much made, yeah, just like the Ultima games and Wing Commander,
Interesting. I love Wing Commander series.
and they made System Shock. Yeah, so I think it's like 8 levels, and but that you're basically like your two kind of levels. So your normal level is really think more kind of like Metroid. They say run and gun. It kind of feels like Turrican, really, I would say.
Mhm.
And the stage design is not particularly great. I mean, you're just kind of like, all right, it's just kind of like traditional platformer, shoot some enemies. Like it's pretty bare bones basic. But in between, you get these spaceship levels where you're flying, and it's like from that Star Fox type of view where you're flying and, there's enemies and everything. And I think there's like 4 planets and there's 4. So there's like 8 total levels, and it's like 4 and 4. It's a pretty short game, but it's just kind of a cool idea that they tried this thing. But I'd say the hook to it is that you can morph, right? Your character basically turns into like a pool of metal slime, and you can like slide under cracks in stages to get through them, right? Like what was that Nickelodeon show where that girl could do that? Alex Mack,
Oh
right?
my
Remember
gosh.
that?
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was about the same time. It was like, yeah, kind of.
So
So
are these
yeah,
upgrades that you get going through the levels that you can do all these things, or you just like
I
equipped with
think it's
them
just
from the get?
it's just kind of from the get go.
Okay.
Yeah, and you just have like a pistol, and there's just random enemies you have to fight against or anything.
I don't think you're selling
There's
me.
not
You're
really
not
like
selling me on this one.
there's not really like a great story. Yeah, like this is one of those ones. I think it's just it's a game that's kind of cool to check out. I don't think anybody's gonna be like, this is my favorite game ever. But I think it's like a game that's worth checking out just because of the idea of that, where it's like, oh yeah, why didn't people? Because there are games that you go back where like in between, like Batman, the Sega, no, even the Super Nintendo version, it would have in between stages where you'd have the Batmobile stages,
Yep.
right? And I just think it's cool that they did like a Star Fox type
Well,
thing
you might have
in
sold me up the
between
Star Fox thing.
in between,
I
where it's
do
like,
want to
oh,
check
you're
it
in a
out now.
spaceship and you're gonna, do that behind the spaceship view, shooting enemies. It's kind of cool. And it definitely has some like mode 7 going on in the graphics in the thing. And
What's
I think
the what's the price on this one?
Metal Morph, it's probably either going to be stupid cheap or stupid expensive.
Yeah, 94. I'll have to see.
Metal Morph, Super Nintendo, yeah, like $150.
And that's loose?
That's loose.
Wow. I don't understand. I feel like this is like a crazy time to be
But
alive.
there's also some people, yeah. It's probably a game because it was like 1994. It probably didn't print a bunch.
That's what I'm thinking. Like
Yeah, it's
late in
just
the
one.
life cycle.
It's one of those games where like my cousin got it, and so it's just like, all right, I just went over to his house to play it, and so I happened to play. It's just one of those games because back then not everyone had every game, right? And
Right.
so he just bought something that he thought looked cool because that's the way it was back then. You pick up the box. I don't
Well,
know. Does it look
you
cool?
couldn't go on the internet and look it up.
Yeah, you couldn't go on the internet, so unless you knew people that had it. Yeah, but the player
You had
must
to try
retrieve
it.
missing pieces of of their ship while simultaneously fending off aliens who desire the secret of metamorphosis.
I feel like I've played that. It's called Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah,
You have to go pick up pieces of your ship.
yeah. It has one review, and it's from GamePro. Because back then, not
Oh
even that
man.
many things reviewed it. GamePro gave the game a positive review, saying that the two playstyles complement each other. The controls are responsive and accurate. The graphics are attractive. The music and sound effects suit the game's tone. However, they concluded that buying this game is pointless since the game's level select and non-randomized levels allow the player to see everything in one single rental, which is what I would say. There's not a lot to it. But if you're looking for something to check out on the Super Nintendo and be like, this would be a fun little thing. Even if you're gonna emulate it, I think it's worth playing just to see the concept of it and be like, I think that this could have been something more.
I want to check it out now.
Yeah,
You
I don't know that it's worth owning, but
no.
it's definitely worth playing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna pay $150, but
No, 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 no.
I will try it out.
Yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna toss it back to you here.
Okay. We already teased it.
Boom. There it is.
Earthbound on the Super Nintendo. Um, this game, I might have mentioned it on the last episode. It's just a game that floored me, and it did take me a long time to jump into. I probably picked it up 5 or 6 times before I actually finished it. And then when the SNES Classic came out, I jumped in and probably dumped about 40 hours just going through it, and I loved it. It was definitely one of the most unique experiences, and I'm glad I experienced it as an adult, or what I consider to be an adult. But it's a very unique take. It laughs at other RPGs. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's got a decent combat system, one that I typically hate in games, where it's like that first person, like Shining Force perspective. I'm not like a big fan of that. Or Fantasy Star does that.
Mhm.
I don't like that typically, but I thought it was just goofy enough, and then it just like it's gut wrenching at some parts of the game, and I thought it was a good symbolism for growing up, like going from a youthful person, uh, and then figuring out life really quickly. And I thought it was a good storyline. So I can't recommend it enough. It's probably one of the best RPGs on the system, if not one of the best RPGs of all time. But it does have that initial, like, it can be tough to get into. But once you get it going, like once the fire started, you're gonna have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I made a short out of the last time we talked about it, and I had some people, say things like, this guy said, "I just started playing this for the first time on my SNES Classic, and I cannot stop playing it. It's so damn charming and intriguing. Um, like, I just gonna dive in more." Another person said, "Once you get past the slow start, it's such a great game."
That's great to hear because I agree. It is a slow start. And like I said, I probably started it 5 or 6 times over the years because people always recommended it. It's like it was a hidden gem at some time. And then with the market, it blew up. Like and now it's just like a very expensive game. And I think that's intimidating to some people. And I hope that's not the case where they can find other ways to play it. You can play it on the Switch. Um, and I definitely recommend that people try and do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting that I know, one of the memes is, "Hey, bring Mother 3. We
Yeah,
want
yeah,
Mother
yeah.
3." That it's another franchise that I've never done anything with.
Only through Smash, right?
Mhm.
Bringing
But that's one of the things that made that where they Fire Emblem pop back up over here is because of how popular the characters were in Smash, Marth and Roy.
Mhm.
But Ness and Lucas are pretty popular too.
Interesting. Uh, yeah, I never really that's another series I never really got into.
Fire Emblem?
Yeah, it's
Man,
deep,
let me
right?
Yeah, yeah. I Fire Emblem Three Houses has become maybe my second favorite RPG ever.
Oh, nice.
I
Now I
have
have to check it out.
Yeah, I mean it's so good. Like I've and Fire Emblem Engage I also really enjoyed, but from what I've heard and what I've played from the rest of the series is that those games are a little bit different and that you kind of have like a hub world in between that you can investigate, and that kind of expanded out for me. But I would say start with Fire Emblem Three Houses. It's so good. The soundtrack alone is just like amazing.
Yeah, it always looks interesting to me, and it it's one of those things where I don't have access. Well, I mean, I could do things to play it. I can do some emulation, but
Right.
it's an expensive series to get into as a
Yeah.
collector. So
Yeah, and I have like Birthright on 3DS, which I could play. And then Awakening is another. Awakening is what I think a lot of people consider to be the best. That was like the first one for 3DS, and but yeah, they're great. They're all just such a great series to dive into. But with Earthbound, also, man, I still am just like, it still just perplexes me they haven't done anything with this. I think the best thing to do would be to do like a remake of Earthbound.
Yeah. They one of the interesting things I think about Earthbound, there's a few things. The first game is amazing. It's really not the first game, it's the second game. The original was on the NES, and Earthbound was really Earthbound or Mother 2. That's what we're familiar with. And then the third game, Mother 3, did come out on the
GBA.
Game Boy, yep, on the Game Boy Advance, but they actually had a prototype for the N64 version where it was that was going to be Mother 3, and you can actually find footage of that gameplay, and it's like it probably took them 5 years to develop what they have. So if you end up seeing that footage, it's kind of nuts what could have been,
Hmm.
and that stuff is just gone. Like we'll never see that. It's abandoned. They took some of the ideas that they had from that initial game and they put it into Mother 3 on the GBA. But you're right. It's largely gone. They don't really keep up with it. And I think fans would be like delighted if something finally would see the light of day.
Yeah, yeah. I think the best way for Nintendo to bring Earthbound back would simply be to remake Earthbound,
Yeah.
Mother Two, right? I think you could do it with some like a pretty cool art style, and I would expand it out a little bit to where you could like see your characters in the battle system. So that's a turn off for people.
Yep.
Actually, Dragon Quest 3, the HD 2D remake that they just did, they actually did it a cool way where when when you're not battling, like when you're like going through the system of what you want to do, like, all right, I'm going to fight, and you're setting up your commands, then you can see all the characters, which you couldn't in the original. But then when you actually go to attack, it goes to the just here's the
That's cool.
monster, you see the slash. So it's kind of a cool way to still have both and like pay that homage to the original. So that's maybe what you do. And
Yeah.
maybe even just toss this to Square and you're like, hey, do an HD 2D.
Yeah, they could do what they did with Zelda as well,
Yeah.
because now they have that actual Zelda game based on
Yeah.
the initial, like, because they have the components and everything for it, so
Yeah. Echoes of
also just continue.
Wisdom.
Yeah,
Echoes of Wisdom took the assets from the Link's Awakening
yeah.
remake and yeah, made an entire
Or
game out
you
of it.
or they do what you just said, where it's like that digital style that
The HD 2D.
I can't imagine it be more work than creating a whole new game from scratch. You could just
Yeah.
leverage some assets.
Yeah, because they obviously worked with Square to some degree, or on the Super Mario
Yep,
uh, RPG
yep.
remake that they just did,
Then there's
which
Star
also
Ocean.
is Star Ocean. Yeah, that one's, I'm actually playing that right now. It's really good.
Yeah, it's
But
beautiful what they
yeah,
did
but
with it.
but I tried Super Mario RPG, but I never played it on Super Nintendo, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's not my thing. All right, I'm gonna talk about my last game here, and this is Tecmo Super Bowl. So obviously there's three versions of Tecmo Super Bowl. There's Tecmo Super Bowl 1, 2, and 3 on the Super Nintendo. And I think most people think about Tecmo Super Bowl on the NES, but I really like the Super Nintendo version just because graphically it's just such an upgrade over the NES version for me. And there's still a great community out there making ROM hacks for it. So you can still
Mhm.
play today with like current rosters.
Yep.
It's
I think
great.
that's awesome.
I download it every year, and they make college ones too. So I'm kind of more into college football, and so I always download every year. I download the college version of it, and I'm still playing Tecmo Super Bowl, still having so much fun. I love it. I'm like a Tecmo diehard. I have the DS version they did, a couple years ago. Um, Love it. I'm a but you know the funny thing is I never played it when I was a kid. Never had Tecmo Super Bowl when I was a kid, but now
Wow.
I'm like, but then I started playing it back when the Dingu came out, which was like one of the first like handheld emulators. I mean, now we have everything like the Odin and the Retroid Pocket and all this stuff like this. The Dingu was this Chinese device, and I could pretty much just play NES games, but I had the entire NES library on there. And I was like, you know, I'm all right. I'm gonna play some football. Play Tecmo Super Bowl. Got super into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mentioned the updated rosters. I feel like every old franchise or old games type, like sports game from back in the day, has a version of it where it's modern. People are keeping up with it, and
Oh
they have
yeah.
the updated rosters. Like RBI baseball has
Mm-hmm.
a new version. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's so crazy to me, and I think it's
And
cool.
NFL Street, NCAA 2006 has a mod of it. NFL 2K5, people are keeping up with it. Tecmo, obviously, and NFL Blitz. There's a
Blitz.
group that does the 64 version of NFL Blitz. NFL Blitz 2000. They keep up with that. I download
Wow,
it every year too.
that's
It's great. It's awesome. It's so much
insane.
fun.
It's cool. It is cool. That's I don't know. It's, it's been so long. I don't think I did much in Super Tecmo. I played
Yeah.
a lot of Tecmo Bowl
Hmm.
on the original NES. I never jumped into the Super version.
See, I think Tecmo Super Bowl to me is way better than Tecmo Bowl. Way better because Tecmo Bowl doesn't have like the full license, NFL license,
Yep.
whereas Tecmo Super Bowl does. And then people do the edits where you can get like the current rosters and everything. And yeah, it's so sweet. Yeah, you can play as Patrick Mahomes or whoever. But
Reenact the Super
but
Bowl.
oh yeah, but to me, the reason I just like the Super Nintendo. If you look at the difference between the sprite animations, I just like the Super Nintendo version so much more
And
because it
you
go
choose
ahead.
that over Madden, like that Madden from like Super Nintendo times.
Oh yeah, I
Is
don't
the
really.
superior game.
Yeah, I really don't like a lot of the older games outside of Tecmo. With the exception of the Sega Sports ones were actually pretty good. Like College Football National Champions and I think it was Joe Montana's NFL football. It's like the same engine.
Yeah,
It's actually pretty good. It holds up pretty well today. But yeah, the Maddens back then, it's so difficult to go back to today because they're just so stiff. Like the characters
they
are and
are.
like like the passing opens up these like three windows and you can kind of see
Oh,
what's
right.
going on and you just bomb it down the field and it's just I don't know, something happens.
It's rough.
Yeah, it's tough. Like now, but a lot of the other sports games are great. Like basketball, Tecmo Super Basketball is great, or even like some of the NBA, well, NBA Jam, obviously. Um, but like whatever the EA version of basketball, NBA Live is kind of okay. Baseball games are great, but yeah, football's kind of a lot because there's a lot of moving characters. Whereas Tecmo, even though it's a little more arcadey than the simulation version of
Yeah,
like Madden, it doesn't feel right to me.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I still love it. I think it's tecmobowl.org and they've got updated rosters and everything you can still download to play. Keep playing today.
Wow.
You know,
I gotta do it. I gotta try it.
it's great. So, all right, I'm gonna toss it back to you for last game today.
Okay. Last game. Super Metroid. Only for the Super Nintendo. Um, I was obsessed. I'm still obsessed. It's tough to match the atmosphere of that game today. I remember the commercials for it just absolutely sucked me in. I think I own the strategy guide, and this is actually my strategy guide from when I was a kid. Like it's beat to hell. I would drag it around. I would obsess over the enemies. Like I was I was infatuated with the game when it came out, and I could pick it up today and just try and work on my better times. Um, it's it's like a once in a generation kind of game, and I hope the new generation that's coming out, like Prime 4. I hope they do something with it. I hope it catches like the last ones did. And again, it's just a beautiful game. I remember just drawing the enemies because they were so unique. And I remember the clunkiness and just the confusion of playing the first NES version. Just what a expanded and improved experience from the original. Like very different than Super Punch Out, where this improved everything about the first game. Adding
100%.
maps, the new enemies, new items, like just chef's kiss. Perfect game to me.
Do you like this more than Fusion?
I do.
Yeah.
There are like quality of life improvements in Fusion that I like like vaulting and grabbing ledges. But there's there's just something eerie, there's something mysterious, and there's just an atmosphere in this game that you can't find in any other game, I don't think. And people can try and replicate it or try and chase that atmosphere. It hasn't been rivaled since. Like no one's coming close to that.
Yeah. Yeah, the opening, obviously, where you're going through, like, the destroyed lab and, like, what's
Yeah.
going on, and, oh, then there's Ridley. Yeah, it's great, and it's one of those games too, especially now that you can play on your Switch OLED if you want, really helps the visuals, and it's one of those Super Nintendo games, and I think a lot of them, the sprites, they just hold up so well today just because they still will always look good, like the art
Yeah.
style, and that's one of the things about Super Metroid is that the art style will always continue to be good in this game.
And not to go on a diatribe, but one of the things I love about Star Wars is it's weird and it's mysterious and you have no idea why there's these things and why there's a history to these characters that you have no idea what's going on, right? I've always loved that about Star Wars, and I think that's what's going on with this game too. It's like when you get into the wreck ship and there's why is there this wreck ship? What are these robots on this wreck ship? There's you don't really find answers to those things, and I think that's probably one of the coolest thing about the game. You don't get answers. There's really no storyline to the game. It's loose, like you there events happen, sequences happen, but nothing really pushes the story. It's like here's the initial introduction, something's happened, then a game goes on, and then you leave the planet. That's like the beginning and the end of the game. Not much happened, like story wise, you know.
Yeah. I think also it's, looking at it from today's lens on all of the things we can do in gaming, like quick save and, like gaming back then, and this is, that where this Metroidvania term comes from. And, Zelda kind of had this too, obviously. But like back then, a lot of games were just platformers, right?
Yep.
All right, beat this level, beat this level, beat this level. And back then, a lot of people didn't have a lot of games, right? I mean, games
Yeah.
were really expensive back
Yep.
then. I mean, GTA 6 might cost $100. Well, like, yeah, that's what video games also costed back then. But with inflation, like you're spending like $200 on a game. Like they were pricey sometimes. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, like you as a kid often only had a handful of games. Like you were really diving in. And that's one of the things I think that why so many people are so fond of this is because you would spend hours on like, or even your summer or your Christmas or your entire Christmas playing this one game. And, oh, you can explore. Oh, you get the map. All right, I got to go get this thing. Get here, go get this thing and do this. And, you know, go over here and get this item. And, oh, now I've got some bomb power ups and that'll help me out.
Right.
And that true, like, Metroidvania style of a game when you were, like, a young kid and you also didn't have access to a lot of things like
Right.
we have today. I mean, today, you can go and get PlayStation Plus, you got, like, 100 games at your fingertips. We didn't have that as kids, right? I mean, like,
Nope.
that was not something you, like, were renting a game on a weekend, and you had to try to do as much as you possibly could, or, you only had, like, 1 or 2 games. So, I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people really like this is because you were constantly exploring, learning
Exactly.
of everything, and every power up feels that much more significant.
Yep. And if you buy a game today, it's like everything is figured out in that game. It's online. They're either going to spoil it, or there's going to be a guide about a way to do something. You didn't have that. You had maybe 10, 12 games in your entire library of games back then, and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna explore this section of the game because maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something I could uncover in this map of the game." It's one of the reasons I love Destiny, the original game, so much,
Mhm.
because when that first dropped, no one had any clue on some of the sequences that would happen in that game. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with the original Destiny game.
It's like my favorite game ever.
Yeah. Xur would come, and that was just like a random
Big
event
deal.
that would like, what? Wait, I don't have any like strange coins for him. How do
Yep.
I get strange coins? Like, that was such an amazing experience that is hard to capture today. Like, everything, like I said, everything's just kind of figured out after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, or even worse, but now it's like, it's like you see the videos of people being like, "Oh, I beat Resident Evil 4 using the chainsaw controller." It's like, "Pff, what?" You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like there aren't just people who are good at games anymore. There are people who are like speed run, like, "Oh, I'm gonna speed run Elden Ring with no weapons, no armor, and I'm gonna do it like an hour." It's like,
Yep.
I've like died like 200 times before I've beaten like the third boss.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think, but again, that's just one of the things that makes, there's a lot of other games in the Super Nintendo as well. Like A Link to the Past is up there. Um, Castlevania, things like that. But yeah, I think it's one of the things that makes Super Metroid so special. And there's really no other game on the system like it. I mean, I talked about Metal Morph, which is obviously I think somewhat inspired by it, but there's really only one Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo.
On anything,
Yeah.
it's a top 10 game for me. Top 10 all time.
Do you think, is it your number one, or Super Mario World above it on
Super
your?
Mario World number one. It's probably in my top five.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
Honestly,
Super Mario World's my number one on Super Nintendo.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for joining me today, talking some Super Nintendo. Always a fun time. We'll have to come back and talk. Well, we could talk more Super Nintendo. We could talk something else. I don't know. I'm sure we can think of something. But where can people find you on the internet?
YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. Age of Retro. Um, yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast. I
Oh,
love talking
totally.
about Super Nintendo, but if we want to talk about other stuff,
Down.
let's figure it out.
Down. Absolutely. Yeah, we could talk Dreamcast, we'll
Ooh,
yeah. Down.
ooh.
We'll fire up another app. We'll schedule out something else out here in a minute. But
Cool.
awesome. All right, guys. So hey, if you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more content, or give us a review on iTunes. If you like an opinion or question of your own shared on the show, be sure to leave a comment or send an email to boxtrickgaming@gmail.com. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.